Well, all right. We are going to depart just for a day or two from what would seem to be our global issue of same sex marriage. And we're going to do this for a very specific purpose. We're going to spend a couple of days um, studying the Supreme Court. Okay, and the reason we have to do this is because we're going to be also studying the famous court case that legalizes same sex marriage. And then also several of the main arguments on each side of either allowing or not allowing same sex marriage revolve around how the Supreme Court operates. All right, and some people say, oh, yeah, that's the way it should. No, that's not the way it should. All right, and so if we don't understand anything about the Supreme Court, it's hard then to go and dig deeper into some of the reasons people agree or disagree with allowing, or at least the way that we allowed same sex marriage in our country. So here's the way we'll do it. I attached a short 2-minute video from YouTube for you. It'll have a decent chunk of information. You're free to obviously use Google. Okay. I'm also going to talk through a few small details here about the Supreme Court. And so when you piece all those resources together, you've just got 10 pretty relatively easy questions to answer about the Supreme Court, so that as we move forward the next couple days, you've got the foundation of what it looks like. Okay. So let's just start with this. There are 9 judges on the Supreme Court, and that of course is important so that there can't be any ties. Right? That's why we have the odd number. These judges are actually appointed and selected by the U.S. president. Now, the U.S. Senate, right, part of the legislative branch, has to approve that choice, but for the most part, whoever the president chooses will become a judge. Again, there are exceptions, but in general, if the president chooses that person, then they will become a judge. So again, 9 judges chosen by the president or appointed by the president. Very unique. This is really the only job that I know of in our national government that's like at a visible major level of government where the people do not serve for a set term, right, or a set length of time. So once you're appointed by the president, you may serve as a Supreme Court judge for as long as you want. The term is that you serve for life. And really just what that means is like you can serve until you choose to retire and step down, or until you die while you were a judge. Okay, and both have happened recently. There was a judge, about 3 years ago, roughly. And now about 4 years ago, probably, who passed away. His name was Antonin Scalia, and he died while he was a judge. Right? I mean, he just had some major health complications, and very quickly he died and passed away. We've also had a judge just in the last 2 years, Judge Kennedy, who retired. Right, he's still alive. He just decided, you know what, I've served long enough, and he chose to step down from being judge. So the judges serve for life, and that's important probably for 2 reasons. One, it makes it so that we don't have constant changes in court decisions, right? So there's not always new judges that are changing the decisions of the previous judges. And the second reason is it helps to keep them, what's the word I'm looking for? It keeps them insulated from public opinion, right? In other words, they don't have to please the voters, right? They're not up for re-election. They're not up for being reappointed by a president. So they can do what they truly think is right regarding the law, right? They don't have to worry about, oh man, I might make people angry. They won't vote for me, so I better not do that. Right? They serve for life. They serve as long as they want to. And so they're free to do what their conscience tells them rather than having to worry, kind of like the president and some of our representatives that are elected. They don't have to worry about what the voters might think. Okay, so those are kind of the 2 reasons why we have them serve for life. Most of their court cases are pretty complicated, to be honest. It's not just like, oh, was Johnny going too fast on US 12? No, like we're talking complicated cases, that normally revolve around the Constitution. So, did someone have their freedom of speech taken away? Did someone have their due process of law taken away? In other words, did this person's court case break some of the rules for what a court case is supposed to look like? Did this person have their home searched illegally? Right, and that's how there was evidence found. And all of those cases tend to revolve around the Constitution and how it operates and is interpreted. So complicated stuff, right? And as they make rulings on cases, they then actually make public their opinions. So, of course, the majority wins, right, because there's 9 of them. And the majority will issue, and you could find them online. I'm sure it's excited reading. You can read it if you want. They issue what's called a concurring opinion. And so the 5 or more judges that agreed, that made up the majority, they will publish their decision and the reasons behind their decision. And so if you concur with something, that means that you agree with the majority. All right, so the concurring opinion is put out by the majority judges. The minority judges will also publish their opinion and say why they disagreed. And that's called the dissenting opinion. All right, so it sounds very similar to disagree, right? Dissenting opinion. And so this is important because judges in the future then can look back on the reasons for why each set of judges ruled the way that they did, right? And we can kind of then study these cases years and years into the future. So, all right. So those are just kind of some basics about the Supreme Court. Again, you may need to do some Googling. I would suggest you watch the other video that I attached as well. It gives maybe some other details, maybe some other angles that I didn't get into as much detail. And then you'll have to answer, again, just the 10 basic questions about the Supreme Court.